So, are we ready to go, Denise?
I think so. Do we know where we're going?
Yeah, we're going to Newark.
Woohoo!
Going to the castle.
And at the moment, the sky is blue, the wind is blustery, but we can deal with that.
As long as we don't freeze to death and we don't get blown away.
Yes.
So, ready for the next travelling brush dippers?
Absolutely.
Shall we
Bring
go?
it on. Bring it on.
Newark Castle was built 900 years ago, and it was originally the glamorous palace of Bishop Alexander the Magnificent of Lincoln. As is the way with most of these things, the castle has gone through many regenerations, and in its time it's been home to a court of law, a soldier's garrison, cattle market, bathhouse. It's been a romantic ruin, a coal wharf, and a public pleasure garden. On the way, we passed this amazing building. This is the Ossington Coffee Tavern, and it was funded by Lady Ossington, and it cost £13,500. The carving of the woodwork, including the ceilings and cornices, was by Walker Smith of London, and the riverside of the tavern included a garden planted with limes, which was intended originally as a beer garden to provide space for outdoor musical entertainment in the summer. The garden also contained a large oak summerhouse and a flagstaff 65 feet high. On the south side of the tavern, facing Castle Gate, was another garden planted with acacias and enclosed with iron railings. It included stables for 48 horses and a carriage house, but I'm guessing that back in its day, it would have been really busy and popular.
We're looking forward to going up and looking closer at these magnificent walls. I'm really ready for a coffee, but the light is so beautiful at the minute that we've just kind of abandoned all our plans and just wandering around in the sunshine. I want to show you something, but I'm too short. Now up here we have the most magnificent spiral staircase that is obviously accessed from the first floor.
When we look upwards and look up the walls of this old building, you can see some of the history here. In all probability, this staircase would go from the bottom floor right up, giving access to each floor right to the battlements. But looking across here, we can see the stonework, the original stonework, which was then overlaid with brick. See the beautiful patterns of the brick there. Probably not done at the date of construction. That may have been an addition later, I don't know. But it was probably originally a timber construction and was rebuilt later in stone towards the end of the century. In a charter generally thought to date to 1135, King Henry I granted the bishop permission to build a castle, and it reads, "Henry, King of England, to all the barons and to the sheriffs and to his ministers and faithful men of Nottinghamshire, greeting. Know ye that I have granted to Alexander, Bishop of Lincoln, that he may make a ditch and rampart of his fish pond of Newark upon the Fosse way, and he may drive the Fosse way and divert it through the same town as he shall wish." Let me try and block the window a little bit. Look at the script here. It gives you the age. Look at the serifs on the writing.
It's proper
Isn't
copper
it
plate, isn't it?
beautiful? I wonder how old they are and what the history is of the people who were here.
Hundreds of years of graffiti.
Yeah.
To cover the distance of just 1 mile, walk 11 times along this ancient pile. That's a bit scary close. This tiny, tiny little doorways. People were slender and petite.
Makes you wonder where it all goes to, doesn't it?
I know, dungeon. We've got this most magnificent window with a magnificent brush dipper in it. And we come up and it still has its magnificent stone ceiling.
Can you imagine being here in the castle as it was, and this being a kind of window embrasure that you would have sat in to just look out over the river? Look at the view outside.
Here comes the wind. So you've got the river, this is the Trent.
You can see here the original technique of chipping the stone to give it the texture which would glint when the sun shone on it. See it often.
Now I've tucked myself into this corner to try and get out of the wind a bit, and it is a little bit less windy. However, you can't really see a lot. So it's a bit of a stupid place to sit and paint.
While we're here actually, and we are out of the wind, we're in the gatehouse, aren't we?
Yes.
And if we look over here, well actually above Denise, you can see this hole in the wall and these lovely great big holes over here, and this would have been where the gates were attached to the walls. And of course up above in this part of the castle here, this is where invaders or unwanted visitors would have been trapped by watercolours maybe, and what did they call that? The killing ground, wasn't it? Where, yes, that's right. So this would have been the main entrance to the castle.
And those holes I can see being holes where the gates were attached.
Yeah.
This one I think was the lock for the sandwiches.
Oh Yeah, I did wonder whether.
So that one
yeah,
was where the guard had
yeah.
his sandwiches.
There's nothing above it. It's not a little fire.
No, it's not. But it does look blackened in there. So maybe once upon
just
a time.
a little brazier or something to stay warm.
Yes. But yeah.
Amazing. Look at all the leaves, the way the wind's blowing, and it's blowing all the leaves against the gate.
And if you look up there, you can see lots more graffiti on those walls, which we can't get to. So
Oh my word! Yeah. Let's go a bit closer and have a look up into the depth. What strikes me is that when we look at the windows of the castle up here, all of the windows are different. Look at the decoration around each window. Let's show you. So if we look at each window here, you see how the decoration on each and every one is different. There's one over there behind the bush. No, you don't want a window behind a bush now, do you? And that one's different again. But each and every one, which is you can see specifically when you're outside on the other side of the river. But it fascinates me. So obviously the person who had it refurbished in the 1900s wanted it to be a bit showy-offy and flashy.
Yes.
And maybe the architect wanted to do it, you know, just to show that he could do something special.
And as we spoke, this toppled across the gardens. I think I should stop talking. Hiya. Well, opposite where we were looking at Prince Rupert, which we're now standing right outside, there's Gallery 6, and we've just been in and had a look round. It's a fabulous gallery. So if you find yourself in Newark, do come down and just say hello and pop in. This is what happens when you leave a wall for a few hundred years on a riverside. It goes on the wonk.
I'm intending to drop in a little bit of grey for the clouds, and to do that I'm literally going to use just muck off the palette. So nothing exotic there, nothing special. If you've got grunge around the edge of your palette, this is the time to be thinking about maybe dropping it into the clouds. And my first port of call is to come in and just dampen some of my sky. I'm not going to wet all of it because I'd like to leave some areas for bits and pieces of cloud. And to keep those nice clean edges, we do that just by leaving dry here. So let's just do this and let's just see how we go. We're going to make it up as we go along, so let's just see what happens. I'm going to come in there and drop this beautiful blue in. I want to keep it soft, and I'd like to keep the edges quite soft as well. I don't want to be too excitable around the edges of the painting, because then that will turn it into a vignette rather than a solid picture. So come in here, down here with some of this blue and pull that through here like this. I want the cloud to sit around the castle, but we can't have it solely behind the castle, so I've got to introduce a few little bits and pieces of colour here and there. I'm just going to come in like that, bring it down behind these trees. The edges, rinse my brush, tap the wet off, then I'm going to come around the edges, rinse the brush again, come in from the outside so that you're just being polite. Polite to the paint, don't go in and barge around in it. I see my paint's granulating. Do I like that? Yes, that's okay. I'll put up with that. I'm going to, whilst it's all still wet and mobile, I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to dampen down some of those edges so that they're not too hard. Just soften, soften, soften. And then what do we do about this gunge off the palette? So I'm going to dampen some of these areas here and then just come into this sort of scuzzy muck around the edges. And if I just drop that in to some places, so again just dab and daub and a bit of this and a bit of that, put it in, and then I'm going to rinse and dab, and I want to come in again and just soften those like this. It's a little bit hard there. I'm just going to gentle that up a bit. And then if I clean my brush, I'm going to come into the bits of the cloud here, clean it, dab it. I want thin colour because I just want to run it over the bits and pieces. So here we go. I'm going to start over here with this tower. Don't be too excitable with your paint, because you don't keep brushing it, because if you do, you're going to land up moving the pencil underneath. Having said that, what we're doing now is going to set the pencil, so it should mean that afterwards we won't be able to rub it out and it shouldn't smudge. I'm coming down here, down this tower, through here. And I still don't think that's dark enough, so let's add even more pigment. So I'm not making the colour darker really, I'm just making the pigment, the mix, thicker, so that I get a more hefty look when I offer it up to the paper. And you'll find that your pencil will resist the paint to some degree. I've gone over the tower, so I'm just going to take a nice clean brush and run it down there. I can do that because the tower's dry. And then I'm going to come through here, do this in segments. Now I know what I've done there too. I've gone over a window. This is one of the reasons for doing it in a segment. So come back, nice thirsty brush. Let's just lift out that window like that. I'll put a little bit of blue in there in a minute. Down, next segment through here. That roof is green there, so I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Down and through, like that. This is all brickwork as well, so we can do that in this lovely colour. And then I'm going to run this down through here. Like that. Now I'm not sure what's happening down here because you can't really see through the foliage. So what I'm going to do is rinse my brush, and all along that bottom edge, I'm just going to interfere with it like that. Just going to soften the whole thing. And I'm going to just drop some sap green into there. Put the colour in, nudge it around like that. And then the same applies. We've got some sap green over here, and I've got some along that wall. So it's obviously moss and lichens that have settled on that wall. There's a little bit up here. So it's just a very thin mix of colour. Just dropping it in. We've got a tree here. I'm going to deal with that later. I'm not doing that now. And then this roof is also green, so I'm going to come in there and pop the green on there. And I don't think that's dark enough, that little bit there, so I'm just going to drop a bit more on. You see it's bleeding out into the back. I'm quite happy for it to do that. It's quite nice to have that muzzy effect there, so that's fine. A bit darker in places. I'm moving into a little bit now of my raw sienna. This is that sort of dead straw look that we get from plants that have died down during the summer and just left a strawy remains of dried up stalks. And the other colour that's in here, which I really love, it's another red, a reddy brown, is burnt sienna. And if we drop some of that in hither and yon, again, that will look like tired bracken, emotional bracken. And my first port of call is going to be the easy bit, which is putting the blue in. So I'm just coming through there, putting the blue in till it reaches that shadow there. Oh, I've gone over the tower shadow. Let's soften all of that edge just with a damp brush like that. And then I think my next thing to do is to come through and let's add the gold for the tower. There's one there. We've got gold in there. And we've got just a frisson of it there. Make sure everything's soft. Just a damp brush coming through again. And now I'm going to go into my dark sludge. And we've got real dark in there between the two towers. It's very dark through here, but there's quite a bit of gold in that bit. So I'm going to just soften. It's drying, so just a bit more water. Keep all that soft. Like that. And then we need that to dry. It's too wet. There's some of the shadows from the trees. That'll do. Now that's quite nice, but there's not enough definition there. I want a little bit more of something, so I'm going to go back to the green I don't seem to have enough green in there. Nope, it's too much. You'll get a feel for this technique if you have a little play with it. It's fab. So I'm going to come through here because these are the branches. I'm going to put some over the wall, why not? These are the branches that are going to go in here. And I've now got to try and paint around some of it. And I've got a really sharp edge against that castle there. So I've got to get that in there, like that. And then I fill in the gaps.
Just pressing a few of these in. So we do have the shape of these leaves being left in the texture of the texture paste, surprisingly enough. I'm not worried if bits get left behind. I'm not worried at all. And I'm going to be bringing the paint only to where I've got my texture medium. So this is the shadow from that tower at the end. And there's an odd bit here which has got another bit that sticks out. Then this next bit is quite light. Again, it's got a little dark line at the top which I'll add in a minute. Very thin line of that colour there. It's not quite even enough. There we go. Right, so I've just put a bit more paint on there, and I'm now going to come in with just a slightly darker version. I want to kind of flood into where all the creases are within this. So then I'm going to use this same dark colour for just shading a few bits.
And of course the wind dies down at this particular point in time. You have to hope that that's not one of Dog's weed on. Oh, what colour's that? Oh. Right, how about...
No, it's not going to do it. We'll do that another time when we get a strong wind.
When we get down to the water.
We'll just do that and hold
When we get to the water, that will work.